This is the Manny Matsakis Show with me, Manny Matsakis, where you will gain insight on how to win on the field and optimize your life. This is episode number 11. In this interview done at the AFCA in Nashville, I speak to Dan Connor. Dan is the defensive coordinator at Widener University just outside Philadelphia. Coach Connor, as a player, was a two-time All-American at Penn State and an NFL veteran, having played linebacker for the Carolina Panthers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the New York Giants. He was also, ready for this, the 2007 recipient of the Chuck Bednarik Award as the best defensive player in the country. This guy is outstanding. And I'll tell you what I love about this is that Dan is quickly establishing himself as a premier defensive coordinator at Widener. He has the opportunity, being there, which is the home of Billy White Shoes Johnson, by the way. Some of the young guys may want to go back and check out who that guy is. He has the opportunity at Widener to utilize what I call a chemistry set mindset. He can experiment, do some things, and come up with some really awesome defensive concepts that he can create there with this creative mind that he has. Enjoy this episode as we each get a chance to learn from an up-and-coming star in this profession. Welcome, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
All right, my man at Widener. So excited for you guys, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a great opportunity, out there in Chester. And, as I'd said before in the intro, you have a really interesting career path to me, right? And there's so many different ways to get into this. And this profession it's tough. There's a bit of a grind to it, people.
Sure.
And, and what I think that people out there watching and listening to this, the intriguing part of your background is, one, as everybody knows, Dan you're a fantastic football player, right? And not everybody that is a great player definitely transitions into the coaching profession very well.
Sure.
I see it all the time. It's like, I was the best, I was All-American. And you were all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, you win the National Defensive Player of the Year award when you're at Penn State.
Yep.
Okay, so you weren't bad. Okay,
right,
you know what I'm saying? And you go on, you do everything in the league with the Panthers and the Giants and the Cowboys, and so all those years of experience you had. And, guys that are in the pros, when you're done, you're in a much better state financially than a guy that didn't.
Right.
I mean? You were able to have some things, and when you're smart and you can invest it, put things away, then you had an opportunity. And at some point, what clicked to you to say, hey, I want to coach football?
I probably going into my fourth or fifth year in the NFL, you always have in the back of your mind it can end at any point. What I mean? You're always one injury away. You're always one, cut away from trying to find a different job. My dad had been a coach. He actually coached at Widener, coached at Swarthmore College, coached at Penn, and then he was a high school coach for, still coaching high school at Strathaven. Both my brothers coach. I knew coaching was my transition, what I wanted to do after playing. So, going into my fourth, fifth, sixth year, as I was finishing up, I was keeping separate notes within our meetings, with the Panthers and the Cowboys and the Giants of coaching stuff that I liked. So really? I knew what I wanted to get into. I wanted to kind of set the stage for it, make sure I had a good foundation. And when you have that in the back of your mind, you're kind of listening differently than a player would listen to it. You know what I mean? You're kind of picking up themes, like what's the head coach? What's his theme of the week? Why is he using this to motivate us? And you see it from a different lens, which helped me as a player, to be honest with you. And then it made my transition a little bit easier because just like you said, being a good player definitely doesn't make you a good coach.
Oh no,
a good coach is a teacher. So I knew I didn't get that GA work, the grind work early on that guys get when they're 21, 22. So I knew I had to do a lot really quick to try to to just build my confidence, find my voice as a coach, and find my style, my philosophy,
Sure.
and all that stuff. So I really started, as I was finishing up my career in the NFL, looking down the road and seeing what I wanted to get to. I knew coaching was just what I wanted to do. I had to be around football.
Yeah. And you came back home.
Yep.
So, for you being in that area outside of Philadelphia, gave you a certain comfort level. It's where, your parents, everything with family is all there.
Yeah.
And, so you got into coaching. So take us through your path, where you went and a few things.
So I finished up in 2014 in January playing the NFL. We moved back. Actually, we moved in with my wife. She'd been together since high school, so she lives in the neighborhood. So we moved back with my son, my oldest son, and her parents lived at their house. And I kind of knew football. I was so banged up, and my neck was in bad shape, and I didn't really want to pursue it anymore. So I was looking for that next transition. I just started reaching out to some of the contacts I had within the Philadelphia area. Bill Zwan was one guy that my dad's known for a while. Sure. So I reached out to him. He said, "Come out in spring and volunteer, and we'll see how it goes."
And this is at Westchester.
And this is at Westchester University. So I went out and I did spring ball, got my feet wet. They had an opening for a restricted earnings position on staff. Opening up in the fall. It was luck. I mean, to be honest, when you look back on it, I didn't know the coaching profession and anything coming out, but it was extreme luck to find a great job in the area I wanted to be in, and it was right there for me once I finished. So I was really fortunate to have that transition. Did 2 years at Westchester as a linebacker coach. Then I got hired at Archbishop Carroll High School in the Philadelphia Catholic League as the head coach and a guidance counselor within the building. I did that for 2 years. Just to see if high school was where I wanted to be. I really didn't know what I wanted. So I tried it out. I enjoyed it. I learned a ton. I mean, it really molds you as a coach, and it really forces you to find your voice because you're not speaking to a position group of 8 linebackers. Yeah. You're speaking to 60, 70 kids, and you're having to recruit. It's the Catholic League, so it's a free-for-all. But after those 2 years, I finished up. I knew I wanted to get back into college. I built, somewhat of a relationship with Coach Mike Kelly, having recruited at Westchester and gone to some of those, Villanova's recruit day and all that. He gave me a call, and position opened up, and then I started at Widener, and that's another. It was just luck, I happened to be looking for a job and had a good relationship. Really, loved working with Coach Kelly. Loved my interactions with him prior, and then he hired me, started, and just finished up my second year there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, he's a fantastic coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just, I learned a lot from him myself. In the Canadian League and at Widener. But,
sure.
As you went through all this, let's just flash back a second. In your playing days at Penn State, okay. Now you guys are really good.
Yeah.
Defensively, especially always great defense there, right? Linebacker, a little bit, right? And what are the things that you learned there that you can even carry on here, working with that specific position group? Because that's the heart of any defense. You're as good as your linebackers. You need obviously help up front and on the back end, but you're in the middle of the whole deal.
Yeah.
So what are some things? Because I know, regardless anybody thinks out here, you play for Coach Paterno.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And let the cat out of the bag. Jerry Sandusky was there,
right.
At the time, but you guys had great players, and you just played great team defense. I just remember since holy smokes, these guys are always. It was the Penn State way.
Yeah. Yep.
And what did you pick up there that to this day is like, hey, this is how you do it?
Coach Paterno did a great job of just instilling character in his players. He would recruit the right type of guy. And then from day one you stepped on campus, it was all about hard work and toughness. And you would hear that repeated every day, the entire time you're there, which built, the foundation of, that's what the foundation of the program is. And that became the identity of the program. From the defensive side, so we had that good foundation from Joe. Defensive side, Coach Tom Bradley and Coach Ron Vanderland and Larry Johnson, Brian Norwood. The defensive staff was incredible, and we had good players too. they were big on keeping it really simple and being incredibly fundamentally sound. And that's what I took. We played not many defenses. We had a bunch of checks and wrinkles, and it made sense, and a third down package, but it was very simple. The emphasis was on running to the ball. The emphasis was on fundamentals, and it lets you play somewhat free. And looking back on college, I don't remember thinking during a game much, because it was as simplified as you could get it. You could just line up and play like you were in high school. It might look, relatively complex to an offense, but we're running what we run. We're detailing it out, and you can play free. And I took that, as I transitioned to a coordinator, I like that philosophy. I want to go out, I want to recruit really good kids, I want to recruit really good football players, and I want to let them play football. I want to, maximize their potential by fundamenting the heck out of them and making sure they got all the skills necessary. But at the end of the day, they're the ones making the plays. I don't want to hamstring a guy, trying to put too much in. So I try to keep it similar to Penn State. Let's be vanilla. Let's try to mix our looks a little bit so, we can keep the offense off balance, but let's let our players play and let's coach them up, coach the fundamentals, tackle, run to the ball, and kind of harp on those things.
So when you're out there and you talk about recruiting a certain type of player and so forth, what do you look for in a linebacker that, once I get that, I can develop that guy to, where his potential is?
My only question, I always go through the high school coach. I don't like going through Twitter or anything like that. I like to talk to the high school coach, and I got to figure out if he loves football. And that's the biggest question that I have, and that's the biggest thing you learn at the Division III level is it's hit or miss. There's some kids that are good at football or they like being on the football team, but do they really love football? That's what I look for, and I try to talk to the coach and pry it out of him, as much as I can. If the kid is really about it, if he's really committed, and if I know that, that's the first thing for me that checks the big box. Okay. Then from there, if it's the linebacker position, I want to see, is he, can he bend his knees? Is he playing square? Does he have an edge? Does he play with a little chip on his shoulder? Does he run to the ball every play? And I try to, we try to watch game film, not just highlights, so we can kind of see him and put him into perspective. But if he has all those characteristics, what his 40 time is, I don't really care. What he benches, I don't care. I look to see the pure football side of it. Does he love the game? Is he good at playing the game? And try to reduce it to as simple and black and white as possible. And then when he comes on campus, all right, now we got to cover all our bases. Let's get him bigger, stronger, faster. Sure. Let's hone in on his skills. But those things, those characteristics are critical, for anyone who's going to get on the field for us. Mm-hmm.
Does it ever come into play? Because I know when we look at guys in different places I've been, a lot of times you want guys that have been, that have played offense and defense, those types of guys. Is there any,
I love that at linebacker. I love a guy that plays running back.
Yeah.
I just think
you were running back.
Yeah, and I played in, and I feel like at linebacker, your vision is a running back. If you're weaving through and you're kind of sifting through a play, you're seeing it like a running back might see it. You're looking for the opening that's about to happen, not already, opened up. Yeah. So a guy that plays running back, for me at linebacker, that's a big plus. Yeah. I know he can do some stuff. Playing other sports is another big plus for me. If a guy plays basketball, even wrestles, baseball, other sports, multi-sport athletes out of high school, tells me he's lived that life of, an athlete. He's used to the commitment. It's not just one season and then, taking off. It's he's playing 3 seasons, multiple sports, both sides of the ball. He's on special teams. That type of thing. Those are game changers if you can get a guy like that.
Okay, so now you've got this player, this player X, and he's got these skills and so forth, at least these precursors to what you want when they come into the program. What fundamentals, drills, skills, what are some things you can tell people out there, that, what's your drill kit? What are you doing with guys so they can start out at ground zero and eventually, get on the field for you? What do you do with linebackers?
We start from the basics. We'll get them there in training camp, and we'll spend the first day pretty much on stance, just to make sure they can bend, get low, be balanced, not be too wide in their base, too tight in their base. So I'll put a good amount of time just on that basic, fundamental. And then it's all developing your shuffle. That was the biggest thing I got out of Penn State is is having a great shuffle is going to keep you square, and it's going to give you a base on contact, whether it's block destruction or making a tackle. So we try to convince the guys, even though it's probably not true, that they can shuffle as fast as they can run. Oh. So most of the drill work we're doing, we'll loosen them up and we'll do some athletic stuff, because I still think you can, if you do athletic movements, you can improve on your athletic ability. But once we get into the drill work, a lot of it is, pursuit of a ball carrier, maintaining your shuffle or a crossover run, which is an alley, regaining your shuffle, from speed, coming to balance, that type of stuff. But I would say the first day, that first week on campus with a raw high school guy, I got to get him in a stance. I got to get him to be really comfortable playing the entire game in that stance, which is essentially that shuffle position with low pads, square shoulder pads.
So that's where it all starts.
That's how I see it.
You build off of that.
And you can build from that, right?
How do you help a guy become a better tackler? And what's the deal there? I mean,
it's you can technique it and you can talk through that. A lot of it is want to, and you can kind of see it off his high school tape. You see a guy that wants to. He's tough and he's proven it. He has production in high school. It's a good start. And then we work the fundamentals of a closed quarter tackle. We'll chest club and chill the old school way. And then we'll rugby.
Use the rugby.
We'll do the rugby gator roll in space. We have the big wheel Coach Kelly got, and we mix that in. So tackling to me is it's a lot of it is 1-2 and toughness. And then the other aspect is the pursuit. Your pursuit to get there, staying on the back hip or working with your leverage and coming to balance prior to contact, your foot fire, your shimmy, all that stuff is pretty critical to tackling. But at the end of the day, I couldn't stress it enough. It's our best tacklers are our toughest players.
Yeah,
yep.
No doubt.
Yep.
You can see that.
Yep.
I mean that I see that at every level. And so now you've got that. I see how you're developing that particular position, but now as a defensive coordinator, I mean, now you're drilling in and you have a philosophy of what you want to do on defense.
Yep.
What are some things after having gone through being a DC that you wish you would have known before you started? At this point,
right?
What have you learned?
It's a good question. I mean, the biggest thing I have to work on is being able to delegate to my staff on my side of the ball.
Okay,
and that's something that I've been meeting with coaches and DCs here to figure out how they game plan, how they go into it, how they split coaching responsibilities. At Westchester, I had a little piece of that. At the high school level, I had all of the defense and all the scheme and the scripts and the cards and everything like that. So when I transitioned to college, I had that same thought. It's got to be me. I trust myself to do it, so I'm going to do all the work. And it is a grind. You really can't. I couldn't sustain. So what I'm learning, even up to this point that I know I still have to improve on is trusting my staff, giving them a big piece of the game plans, the breakdowns, the scripting of practice, and let them run with it. I have a really good defensive staff. They're all young guys, and it might be their first year coaching or third or fourth. They're still getting their feet wet in the profession. You really gotta trust them. You gotta let them fly and let them show what they can do, and you have to define it. You have to give them exactly what you want, and then you kind of hope in the back of my mind, or I want to see if they cover their work of what they need, and then they go above and beyond. And that gets them involved in, the game and the game planning. It's a piece of them at that point. They're not just coaching a position. They're part of the attack. They're part of what we're doing. And I think that gets buy-in, obviously, with them. And I think when they're fully bought in and they have a piece and their signature on the game plans, the players in their room buys in even more. So that's one thing going into it. In hindsight, I should have done better, and I probably wouldn't be as burned out at the end of the season as I get now.
You need that trip to the Jersey Shore.
Exactly. Get on the shore and take a week.
No, that's interesting. That's we all learn things. And I think it's a constant. The best coaches are learning all the way till they retire. Really,
Absolutely.
Right. And so when you do that and you put it all together, and let's say it doesn't work out. You're right. You played a game, and hey, look. We've seen great teams on defense always they just get shelled one day. It doesn't matter. It happens.
Right.
You know, the best of the best. It happens. Right. So, it's obviously you feel terrible when it's over.
Yep.
Right. And then you come in on Sunday, you look at the film or, and so forth, and you're like, you feel even worse.
Yep.
Right. And then how do you handle that? How do you get out of that situation? Because you got another game coming up on Saturday.
Right. And the way I look at it, I have two sons. Your players look at you like you're their dad or their parents of see how you're going to react in a adverse situation, and they will feed off of you whatever you show. So if I, feel like crap, which I do, and I'm pissed at them, I'm pissed at myself, the face I have to put out to them needs to be one of strength and confidence and accountability.
Yeah.
When we look at a game we didn't play well, I'll give them a recap, and we'll call it, as we see it. If there's calls or a plan that didn't work out schematically, I take full ownership of it. And I let the players know it's okay to do that. You don't have to be in denial. You don't have to point fingers. You just own what it is. Hey, we shouldn't have been in this coverage. Whatever it is, I shouldn't have left you alone on this play. The guy's a good player. You needed help. I make that clear to them to try to just kind of nurture that environment of ownership and accountability. So then when they watch the film, they're not pointing fingers at each other or they're me or the position coach. They go, yeah, that's me. I got to get better. And I feel like if you have a team or a side of the ball that really prides themselves on that type of accountability, owning up to it positively or negatively, and knowing when and where to point the finger, I think that's how you improve. So I like to go out, call it how it is, learn from it, be accountable, know where your room for growth is. Then they get the day off, which is great, for them to kind of reset their brain. And then we come back, on Tuesday, which is that first work day, clean slate, looking to go 1-0. You know what I mean? So you try to have a short memory as much as you can. It's hard. It's not easy, but it's how you got to play. And the kids feed off your energy and they feed off your message. Okay.
So as you say that, what comes to mind is I remember a saying, and I don't know if Coach Leach, Mike Leach, ever I don't know that he created it, but he certainly has quotes galore, Yep. But he always would say to our coaching staff, he had a big sign in his office. It was you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like I think that ownership that comes from that is like, okay, fine. I've always felt when I would interview coaches, the best interview for me is their film.
Right.
Where you coached, how did they look on film? What were you trying to teach? Show me something that you didn't do well, and how would you fix it?
Sure.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
like that's a resume. It's not like what you see on paper. It's just paper.
It's paper.
Yeah.
And especially if you have the experience and you've done it, you got to be able to show it. And it might have deficiencies. That it might need to improve in some aspects, but you show it and you put it out there and you say, here's what we're in, here's what we were thinking, here's where we got to get better. Or here's where the scheme's got to get better, here's where we got to get a guy who can get that job done or whatever. But yeah, the film does not lie.
No, and it doesn't. And it's like just as much as it applies to coaches, so many players, at the small college level, they aspire to get to arena ball, to the CFL, to the XFL today, any of the stuff. But what they don't realize is you can go to all the they have tons of these tryouts, and you're paying money for them. And I get it, and the shot there is 1,000,000 to 1.
Yep.
But your film is your resume.
Yes.
And that's just like you alluded to before. When you're looking at a player in high school, you want to watch their full body of work. You want to watch a whole game film, a half.
Right.
Something that says, how does he do on every play?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. How does he respond when he's, they're down 40? Is he still playing hard? Or does
Absolutely.
he, if they're up 40, is he trying to sub himself out? Or that stuff is interesting to me.
Yeah, it really
says a lot about his character, and it's all about trust. You got to be able to trust the guys you put on the field. And when you get a profile from the coach of what the kid's really like, and then you see on the tape within context, the game, you get a feel for what you're getting, in that kid. And and it varies. I mean, highlight films lie.
And that's all you see anymore.
That's all you see.
Highlight film after highlight film. And
that's
it's
exactly it.
Okay. And especially at the Division III level, and you're recruiting more players generally.
Oh yeah.
Than the D1 level, you only have so many scholarships, but D3 is all financial aid based. So,
Yep.
To get, I don't know what you all bring, 35, 40 kids in a class or so.
Yeah, try to go about 40-ish.
Yeah, so I mean, just to do that, you're recruiting, maybe 800 kids.
Yeah, probably, maybe a little more. I'm trying to think now. Each coach will have about 150, 175 kids in his little Google sheet. But we still are pretty strict on how we vet our guys. We make sure they're good guys and good players, and we'll turn kids down that might be great players, but they come on a visit and they're not a fit for us. They don't click. We will pull back, because we're not, like we say, in recruiting, we're not part of admissions. We're not trying to bring in 100 kids. We're trying to bring in the right kids and go from there. So yeah, it's recruiting at Division III. It's a grind.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is it's different at Widener than it is at other colleges. I mean, there's some schools like out in Ohio, like a Mount Union. I mean, they bring in 120 to 140 kids every year. Their roster, Dan, their roster's 220 to 230 kids on their roster.
Yeah, that's tough to
manage. They have a 10-game JV schedule.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've got a lot of coaches and all that, but they're a national power, and that's their way of doing it.
Yeah, sure.
And Widener can certainly do it, but it's just a D3 seems to be, to me, the most inequitable situation. There's not a lot of parity.
No,
everyone's not doing it the same way, and at least in D1, hey, we've got 105 kids on the roster, 85 scholarships.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, each school's got their own philosophy going in. It's different levels of, support from administrations and how you package. It changes school to school. So we try to find our niche and how we want to do it and go with it pretty much.
Yeah, what would you say is your niche at Widener?
As numbers wise, I want to hit the minimum amount of kids that we need to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we're looking for. We can't really withstand bringing 120 kids in. No. We just don't have the staffing and the fields and all that stuff for it. If we can keep that number low and keep our roster hovering around 85, 90, but the right kids. We want to get to the point where we're able to really almost turn guys down because we have the right 25 or 30 kids coming in.
Okay.
I'd like that. It worries me as a coach bringing in 100 some kids, managing them, managing egos, managing playing times, and you get a kid who might be a cancer on the team. You're just running the risk of a lot of stuff if you're just bringing in bulk. So we try to vet the kid pretty good and make sure it's the right kid for us. Mm-hmm. So the locker room is good. We're surrounding our kids with good kids and our coaches with good kids and same thing. The coaching staff, it's good people. Mm-hmm. So that's how I like it. And our administration might not like that. They might want us to try to bring in 70 or 80, but
in the end, it's still highly competitive, and you have to and you want to win. I mean, because kids want to win. It's you don't want to foster anything but a championship environment.
Sure.
And, as you're doing this is a question that I think about oftentimes when I talk to guys that are defensive-minded, defensive coordinators, even head coaches that are defensive guys, is, based on your experience or how you feel, it seems to me that the type of offense that you match up with the defense you run can directly affect the success of the defense. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, for instance, okay, so you look right now in the college game at the highest level, you've got some great defensive coordinators, and I've seen a lot of defensive coordinators get fired in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. Right? Happens all the time because they got these high-powered offenses that are just cranking at tempos and everything, and they're basically hanging out to dry. The defense, and it's always intriguing to me. I haven't found. I just want opinions on this more than anything else. It's like, how does a defensive guy think? Because if I look at it, like early in my career as an offensive coordinator, I was about scoring as much as possible, going as fast as I could. And that was years ago.
Right.
And I didn't realize the stress it put on the defense.
Sure.
And until I became a head coach, I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Or I'm going to vary the tempo, do some things, because if you guys are on the field because of 3 and outs or 2 plays and we score, and you're on the field all the time, it's got to put a lot of stress on those guys.
It does. And we're a tempo offense, and behind closed doors as a staff, we get in fights on that of how we should handle it, and their perspective on the offensive side is let's score as many points as possible. We work best at a high tempo, and I see it, kind of how you were saying, if you're 2 plays and score or 3 and out, you're not eating time of possession. And my big thing after the games, I'm looking at time of possession. I'm seeing where we can get better, on third downs or turnovers, whatever it is. But eating clock, I think, is critical. And we've had a couple games where we go into that second half with a lead, and we keep the foot on the pedal, which some games works out. We might blow the team out, but some teams kind of sit in the pocket, make some good adjustments, and they're able to come back, because we're not just eating the play clock. So it's a good point. I mean, I absolutely see it as critical to protect your defense. Or really, if the offense is better, and for us last year, our offense was really good. It's one thing, go out, score, get a good spot, but my argument was always let's in that early fourth quarter, whenever we have a comfortable lead, let's find a way to take some of those tempo principles, but let's snap it with 5 seconds on the shot clock.
4 minute up. Something.
Right, exactly.
And
we did it. Del Val is when we thought we wanted to do it and give it a shot, because they're number 8 team in the country, and we played them, and we had the team game plan there was let's eat that shot clock. They're good on offense. Let's keep the ball out of their hands, and it worked out really well for us. 14-14 going in the fourth quarter, and we were in a good game, a really good game with a great opponent. So that's when we kind of applied it. Now I don't think you live by that. I think mixing tempos, is a good way to keep a defense off balance and still having the ability to just burn time, put together a 15-play drive and just eat a quarter. I mean, that to me is. That's
isn't that crazy? And what's funny, Dan, is like I have so many friends that are whatever, they're all over the country coaching, and I can see it. I look at two guys that I consider friends. One guy here's a guy like Mike Leach, who's known for air raid, fast tempo. We're just going to crank it, and I've seen him throttle people. I've also seen him lose a game in the second half because he's up and he's still launching it with no, I don't want to say no concept, but no regard for time management, clock management.
Yes.
Right? So I see that. Yep. And then I've got another buddy of mine, which Mark Stoops at the University of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And you see them. They came in, his first 2 years, they were air raid, because Kentucky historically was known as air raid fast tempo. So he hires coordinators to do that. Right. Great. And then they move on, or, there's a restructure of the staff. And then he brings in, I think it was year 3, brings in Eddie Grant, who's, obviously he'll be on this podcast as well, as Coach Stoops will be. But it's like, now Mark is a defensive guy. Yep. I mean, he played at Iowa defense. And then he just said, okay, we are going to find a way to slow the game down, regardless. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did. I mean, this past year they led the nation in rushing for a non-academy team.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. And they do that. So the creativity, they know, like, it's all heavy. This year they had a guy who was National Player of the Year, Lynn Bowden. Okay. Mm-hmm. And his quarterback run game. You watch them, they beat Virginia Tech in that bowl game. Yep. And it's like, he's carrying the ball. And they just grind it down every single play. And they have great defense. Yep. So they're out there fresh and they nail it. Yeah. And I don't know which way's better.
I don't know either. And part of it, when I look at it, and I see it from their perspective too, obviously I'm going to be a little selfish and see it from, try to protect my guys on my side. Sure. But I think it's game to game. is kind of what I'm learning as we're going. We might have a team where I feel really confident, when we have a staff meeting, we can stop these guys. We can hold them. Go nuts on offense. You guys can put up points, go get it, and we feel good. But if I'm going in and it's a similar opponent, a better opponent, or whatever, the biggest change I think we're gonna really look into this offseason going into next year is how do we control a lead? How we get up 2 or 3 scores. How do we just control clock? Because I don't want to take away from what they're comfortable with on the offensive side. If you're a tempo guy and a spread guy, you can't change what you are. Because if we're trying to eat clock the whole game, we're not putting up points, and we could lose games that way too. So it's a situational thing, game to game, and it's definitely half to half. With how the game's going. And the team's got to be on the same page. If the offense is grinding it and eating clock on defense, I don't want to be hyper aggressive. I want to be safe, keep the ball in front, and just burn it out. Let them put a little drive together, try to stop them in the red zone, and go from there. But it's been an argument, I'll tell you that, in our staff meetings because it's a tempo offense, and it's good. We're growing from it. No matter what, we're growing.
I mean, I think in the end, you want to win.
Right.
No matter what it is,
the one
you
thing
want
we
to
have
win.
in common.
Well, yeah, and I've always felt like, what, you can have the number 1 offense in the country, but if you're a 500 team, what is that?
Right.
Or or a losing record. You see it all the time. A lot of times I see it in passing offenses. It's like, we're the number 1 passing offense in America.
Right.
Okay, but you're 3-7.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it.
Yeah.
And
I think a head coach would. It's hard. I see it from the offensive guy. His job is to go out there and score, and if his way to do it is quick, he's going to do it. It's one of those things I would think a head coach might have to try to put it into perspective and try to talk both sides, kind of find a middle ground between those two things. But yeah, I mean, we've faced those situations where we're in that fourth quarter, and I'm going, man, let's just run the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have weapons out there, and it's hard. Teams load the box, and it's hard not to take advantage of it. So
you got to do what's there. Yeah. Now that makes sense. Now with you, we talked earlier in this podcast about just the grind of coaching, how it can wear a guy out.
Yep.
What are some things? Because I was always impressed that you were able to, in the off season, let's say, you're able to get away and go to the Jersey Shore.
Yep.
You're able to disconnect. Just to clear your mind, to do some things and all that. What do you do? I mean, what do you? I know family is really important to you,
yep.
And how do you balance this deal out?
During the season, it's tough. It's really tough. It is what it is, and I've been fortunate. My wife knows since I was a player in the NFL what the schedule's like during the seasons, and knows I'm not. It's tough to be around much. The hours are tough, and it's a 3-month sprint. To do it. So in the off season is when I really make sure I carve out a lot of time just to get down the shore. I'm fortunate enough to have gotten a house down in Ocean City. Yeah. So every single weekend in the off season, if we don't have a recruiting visit or anything, we'll go down the shore. And then I'll try to get home, in the off season at 3:30 or 4, so I can hang out with the kids. Sometimes I can take them to school in the morning.
Oh, nice.
So you try to find times, and the off seasons is one of the best times. And small school football, you're able to do it a little more, I would assume, than, you would know more than me, but the big schools might be an all year round grind.
It can be, but there are some guys out there. I think about Bob Stoops, for instance, who's obviously a Hall of Fame coach and all that. And he, as the head coach at Oklahoma forever, would drive his kids to school.
Yep.
Yeah. And he would pride himself. That's just how he handled it.
Right.
And he would be, and if anybody on the staff had children, guess what?
Yeah.
You have to do that too.
Right.
And then we pushed the staff meeting back to 9:00 or however they would do it.
Yeah.
It was always family first, and you never wanted to miss, your child's recitals, games, anything like that, especially in the off season.
Yep.
And, I even know, like, my brother Louie, who's a special teams coach at Kentucky, he does, on Sunday, he knows the work he has to get done after a game, and this is during the season, and, he's going to, manage his time to do it. But if his son Michael is playing a soccer game or Nicholas is playing a football game, he is there.
He's there. Yeah.
And Mark Stoops would expect him to be there. He would be disappointed if he wasn't.
Yeah.
Because he'll come back in and he may work till midnight that night.
Yep.
But the work's going to get done.
Yeah.
And you just manage your time.
And it's great when you have a head coach. Like, Coach Kelly was great with this. Coach Baraniak, our head coach now, is great with it. Halloween's, we can adjust practice schedule so I can get home, and they're really flexible. They were really flexible. I could have my kids to the office, during the day, pop in for, around lunchtime. So that stuff's critical. And you got to carve it out during the season. And I would usually during the mornings would drop off and then lunch, because I wouldn't see him. We'd get home at about 10 o'clock at night. But you got to carve it out. And like you said, it might extend your Sunday or Monday or whatever, but it's worth it, to see the kids, to get balance in your life and make sure that part of your life is handled.
No, that's kids. Okay. Now I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. Because, our profession, I think there's probably more broken marriages than almost any profession I've ever seen, just because of the work, and you lose each other. Your wife, and the way things go, and you're in your world, she's in her world, or she doesn't feel involved in it, and so forth. What is, what would be something that you'd say here is a great way to keep, the passion, the relationship, with your wife,
right?
Because
it's tough.
It is. So what do you do?
We have every Friday, since Friday's a shorter day. You're doing your walkthrough. We're able to go out to dinner, so we do that during the seasons. And sometimes it's with the kids. Sometimes it's, they're drop them off with grandma and grandpa, and go out together. That's big. That gives you a weekly thing to break up the season a little bit, and something to look forward to. Just getting that night kind of just to hang out. And then during the day, what I'll do is, anymore with texting and all that, I finally got an iPhone, so it's a little bit easier. We'll text back and forth throughout the day, and you can FaceTime, and there's a lot of stuff you can do now that probably, that couldn't, a bunch of years back, which makes it easier to just have constant contact, because you can't shut it off. You can't shut off your personal life and your home life during the season for a 4-month span. It's too much. So you try to find a balance. You try to find those times within your week, within your schedule, to build something, to carve out time where it's a guarantee that you're going to get this every week, and then make sure they're involved. Like I said, my wife and kids, they'll come to the office during the season pretty much every day. For 30 minutes, 45 minutes, we'll run around the indoor facility, or they'll come up to the office and bug all the other coaches. But it's good when you have a supportive head coach that's okay with that. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? With the kids being around, and Coach Baraniak, he's got a son, they pop by. So it's good for the program, to be honest with you, to see that type of family environment. It makes you feel welcome, makes you feel at home and more comfortable in your job, where you're not looking to, for your next deal. You're comfortable where you're at. Your family's comfortable where you're at. And I think it starts with that head coach support of that type of thing.
No question. Yeah, I can see that. And, I'll tell you what, Dan, it's been fantastic having you on this podcast.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
I love it. Yep. And, I learned so much. And I know everybody out there, you pick up so many great insights from, our guests on this show, and having someone like Dan Connor. Now they can, reach out. I'm sure the email's on the Widener University website. Yeah,
and, absolutely.
You've always been a very supportive and helping coaches out, and it's just great to have you as part of this show.
Yeah,
and the key here is, in all of these episodes where I actually do an interview with a coach, that's a way I believe that we can help you out there win on the field. But as we alluded to at the end, it's about winning on the field and optimizing your life.
Right.
And when I come back after this interview, I'm going to do a little segment to help you, give you some tips and reminders, as we say in coaching, how to optimize your life, get better balance and so forth, and take care of your health. Because, hey, I don't, personally, the guys say, "Oh, how long do you want to coach?" Forever.
Right.
And I don't. It's not a job to me. It's an adventure. It's a passion.
Right.
I can't. this is my hobby.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Don't feel like you're working.
No, and it's great because you're around young guys, young players, coaches that you enjoy being with, and that makes this profession great. And I think, in this day and age, over the few years, I see a lot more guys, and you saw it in the National Football League, a lot of guys coaching into their late 70s, sometimes 80s, right?
Yeah.
And those guys are master coaches.
Yep.
You get a guy that's in his 70s, and I don't know, like a Dick LeBeau in his day, it's like, hey, he's legit.
Yeah,
right?
They find balance, like the coaches, the old timers that I, was fortunate to be around. They'd find balance with, their family would be at the facility. You'd see them working out,
great.
So they were staying healthy. Their routine was really good, and it allows you to go through.
That,
you don't over grind yourself where you're
That's
waiting, to get out the door. You find how it works for you and your family, and it's a good gig.
It is a good gig. I love it, and I wish you all the success, in the upcoming season and seasons to come in your career. And we'll be right back with our tips and reminders.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to Dan, and I know you got a lot of that as well. And now it's time for some tips and reminders where we wrap up each episode with some information that can help you optimize your life. And everyone has a different approach to do that, but my approach is primarily with essential oils. And I want to do this and educate you on how best to use these, especially the one brand that I use the most. It's the only brand I use is doTERRA, which is a certified pure therapeutic grade oil. And that in and of itself is exciting to me because it is so pure. It's the purest essential oil on the planet. Now let's talk about an essential oil I use often in the afternoon, and it's called green mandarin. Okay, green mandarin is an oil that I enjoy. I enjoy just the aroma of it, inhaling it. It's fantastic. Just reminds me of so many good things that I don't know, it just lifts my mood. I'll be honest, the way I use it. It's a great smell. It's great to inhale or diffuse it if you have a diffuser. And the other thing that I really like to do is I like to put it a couple drops over ice and then put some sparkling water in there, let it fizz up a little bit. And it does have a tremendous amount of energy to it for a nice pick-me-up in the afternoon. So once again, thank you so much for joining me on this show. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure to subscribe in iTunes. Give us a rating, comment on the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Just hit the bell in the top corner and you'll get notifications on YouTube every time we put out a new episode. If you'd like to get all kinds of updates on the website at MannyMatsakis.com, all you have to do is subscribe with your email, and there is a pop-up on the first page, and then there's also all types of forms in there where you'll see where you can get your updates through that. And then you will get an email every time. On Monday is when the podcast comes out. Wednesday, currently I've got some Inside Access podcasts, which are a bit shorter. And then Friday, if there is a video, we release it on Friday of the podcast and so forth. So that's how we're working that out for this. So please subscribe with your email and you will get those regular alerts. Along with that, you can get my report called Fill the Stadium, a coach's secret formula to build a program and fill your stadium to capacity. This is only available for a short time only, and then it will be taken off. So depending on when you're listening to this podcast, the opportunity may exist for you to sign up and get that. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.